Hi, I'm Emily from Threaded Journey. Let's create something you'll love.
Today we are going to make the Hello Gorgeous puff sleeve tee pattern by Pattern Emporium. This has so many options, but today we're going to do the high square neck short sleeve tee. I am making it out of this beautiful organic cotton lycra from knitfabric.com. They're just regular cotton lycra jersey, also sews up gorgeous. This pattern would be beautiful in a double brushed poly if you're wanting more of a print type of shirt for it. If you haven't ordered your fabric yet, or you need some knit fabric, if you would shop through my affiliate link, that would be great. If you have not cut your pattern already, make sure you double check your size. I had to make a larger size than what I typically do, and that was my measurements on their pattern made it where I was making a 10 versus normally I'll make a 6 or an 8. So just check your measurements before you select your size. Also check your armband measurements, no matter what sleeve length you're making. This little tool right here is so handy for measuring yourself. Pull it off and you can measure. And I love this little thing. I'll put the link down in the comments for that. But make sure you measure your arm before you do an armband. I kind of thought they were a smidge on the snug side, so just double check those before you stitch them in. This has a beautiful puffed sleeve at all the lengths, but it's a puff. So if you maybe want yours a little less puff, then it's easy to grade your sleeves down a little bit. So take your sleeve pattern, mark maybe a 1/2 inch or so. You could even go a little bit further in, and then just draw a line down. Make sure though you start here and grade down. Don't take off any from under your arm here. Cut that off, then match it on the other side so that it will be even. And that'll just make it a little bit less poofy if you prefer that. Especially if you're doing like the long sleeve and you need it to go up under a coat sleeve. You might want to make that a little bit smaller. So those are just some things to think about before you start cutting your pattern. I'm going to say though, this was the easiest pattern I have ever put together. It was done beautifully, and the instructions were really nice until you got to the high neck, high square neck. And that was a little bit confusing. So I've done real details instructions in this video on how to do that high neck and get that all matched up with the correct notches. If you are doing this solid, you might want to put a little piece of tape on either the right side or the wrong side of your fabric, just to make sure you don't get that mixed up. And let's make sure we have the correct markings on our front bodice piece. This super confused me, so I want to make sure that it doesn't have to be confusing for you as well. So we're going to mark the front center as always. You're going to mark this little notch right here, and it probably says your size underneath it. Mine does. Then we're going to mark this next one that says squared high. It has your size, and then it says squared high. We are not marking the one up here that says high. That one is not a marking. That is pointing to which line you cut for your squared neck or your low neck, okay? Then the shoulder seam is also a marking, all right? So, okay, shoulder seams are done, pressed to the back. I clip my back just to make sure that I don't mix it up for any reason. This time it's a little bit easier because I have the markings on the square neck, but if it's a crew neck that's a high crew neck, sometimes it can get a little confusing. So that little clip helps a lot. All right, I've taken my sleeves here and I've done my stitches for my gathering, from my gather line to my gather line, longest stitch length, and I have stitched as close kind of to the edge as I can, and then come a little bit further away, leaving enough room to stitch my seam allowance right in between those stitches. So this is my right side of my fabric. I know that because I've put that little piece of tape there. And let's see, this is my front, this is my back, so that is not the right piece. This is my front, there we go. This is my back. All right, the way that I do my gather sleeves is I take that shoulder mark that I marked, I put it right there with the shoulders. And I'm going to pin that. And then I'm going to clip in the flat part up to my gather stitches on each side. Okay, it's time to create our arm cuff. Right sides together, stitch it, okay? Then you're going to flatten out your seam and then fold it in half, okay? So now your wrong sides are together and your right side is out. I've even, since mine's a short sleeve, I even just slid it on, and just to make sure that it's not going to be too tight, because it's not too late at this point to change it. Whereas if you get it on, then you're probably not going to want to change it. All right, so now it is time to put our gathering stitches in the bottom of our sleeve so that we can add on our bands. Okay, it's time to put the cuffs in. So I did my gather stitches on the bottom of the sleeve, and then I put the sleeve inside the cuff, matched up the seams here, and my halfway point of my sleeve with my halfway point of my armband here, and then I'll just gather and gather on the other side until it looks like a nice gathered sleeve. Okay, now that's all gathered up and clipped into place, it's time to stitch it in. Again, I'm just going to be doing my regular seam allowance, and it'll be right between those gather stitches, and I'll go all the way around. Okay, let's make sure our neckband markings are marked correctly. We need a center marking. This one, this one. This is the one that's going to match to our shoulder, and this is going to be the back. This is where it is sewn together. Make sure you do that on both sides, okay? Now, we have stitched our band together just like you would normally do, but we're leaving it flat, okay? We're going to put it in flat. So, of course, do your seam to the back center, your shoulder seam, that next one. Just keep moving along here, stretching as needed, but make sure you're only stretching the neckband, not the shirt, okay? And then halfway between, you can do an extra little clip to make sure it stays put, and stretched while you're sewing it. All right, and it's flowing very nicely. I'm not having to stretch a whole lot, just a little bit. So if you are stretching a whole lot, you're doing something incorrectly. All right, so make sure you fix that before you try to sew it in. The ones that seem to have the most stretch are these that are kind of going around the curvy part of the neck, making it squared. And I think I'm ready to stitch it in. If for any reason you're like worried about it, not sure I did it correctly, then do a longer stitch. Just do a basting style of stitch. Maybe do it inside your seam allowance and just a little bit, and just make sure you got it right, because that basting stitch will be much easier to pull out than your real one if you're worried about it. If you think you got it, you don't feel like anything was overly stretched, or that it and you made sure it kind of stretched evenly on each side, you didn't have one side that seemed to be more stretched than the other, then you can go ahead and sew this in. Okay, hopefully you can see this. I have stitched my band on, and I have ironed as best I can that seam allowance up, and then folded over the band and just pinned it where it is right at that stitch line. Okay, now you want to just double check, make sure it looks even all the way across, so you don't need to like scooch down part of it. You just kind of want to make sure it's looking pretty good here. And then you're going to need to stitch just as close to this line as you possibly can while catching all of your stuff. Just go very, very slowly. Line your needle up as best you can so that you can stitch right there beside that seam line. The pattern instructions give you several different options that you might look into of how to finish this neckband. So I looked through all of my presser foots and decided that my zipper foot was personally my best option. I can put this little bitty part that would go up next to the zipper right there next to that line, and then I can move my needle really close to it, so it makes a really nice guide as I'm stitching. I went a little ways, and then I just kind of peeked back here just to make sure that it was catching up under there, because if it's not, I want to know that now, not once I have gotten my whole band in. So I'm just going to go super slow. I'm going to stop every now and then, just make sure that it has not rolled, it has not flipped up as I'm guiding it through. All right, all in and pressed, and it looks good. All right, hem is done, my shirt is complete. I do not have a cover stitch machine. I did not use a twin needle. I completely faked the double stitch here just by stitching it twice. So I rolled it under the 5/8 of an inch like it said, and then I did one stitch and came down 1/4 of an inch and did the next one, just to kind of give it that look as if it was done on a machine. All right, my shirt is done. It is absolutely gorgeous. I left the sleeves as is. I did not grade anything down, so this is the regular puff. Square neck. Turned out so cute. It's not so square, but it's just something a little bit different than a rounded neck. Just did the regular hem. So cute, perfect. I did not change the length at all. I am 5'4" and normal. I don't have like a long or a short waist, just regular average on that. So it's turned out beautiful. Absolutely love it. I had these jeans and that was why I picked the color that I did. I wanted something to match those, and knitfabric.com did not disappoint with this beautiful fabric.
Let me know in the comments which version of this pattern you're making. Like and subscribe so you don't miss the next sew along.